We are here to learn about Geenee. Geenee and we have somebody here from Geenee as well, which is Cory Grenier, who's going to be telling us much more about the company, what interesting type of projects they're doing. There's a very interesting website, actually. You should check it out at geenee.me, so you will get a taste of what the team is working on. But I will, give the floor to Cory to tell us much more about this. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Lucas, and it's a pleasure to be here, and also to participate and support PathMonk in this great opportunity for your audience to learn more about SaaS and about some of the cool technologies that are available today, both in terms of what you do with lead qualification and what we do with WebAR.
Very good. So maybe let's jump straight into it. You mentioned already WebAR being sort of the topic that we're talking about today. Maybe give us your own summary or your perspective of what Geenee is all about.
Yeah. So Geenee exists today to be a simple drag and drop interface to allow companies, developers, creators to simply create, publish, and share AR experiences to the web. And there's some advantages to that, because a lot of existing AR experiences are confined to single apps, and there is a friction point when you're downloading an app or you're trying to reach a broad audience, which is absolutely global, which the web is. And not everybody uses TikTok, not everybody uses Snapchat, not everybody uses Facebook and Instagram, and so forth. And so there's a way, given the technologies of today, where the phones have never been more powerful. The speeds of connectivity have never been faster with 5G and edge computing. And that's the opportunity that WebAR is currently serving, that you can just create, publish, and share experiences directly to the web, no app required. And those experiences through AR are unlimited. They can drive commerce, they can drive AR marketing, couponing, and so forth.
Interesting. Could you give us maybe one or two concrete examples? You mentioned couponing there. Maybe could you walk us through an experience of what somebody would experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, we've been serving some really big clients, such as Walt Disney Studios, Warner Brothers, Scholastic, and I'll make that concrete on what we're doing. So Scholastic is the publisher behind the Hunger Games series. And they created they published the recent book called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And using our technology, Geenee, we were able to bring the book cover to life. So this logo of an eagle actually rises out of the image. And then there's an interactive experience that engages consumers wherever they are, like Twitter, so forth. And then when you click on it, then it takes you to the page that you can buy the book. That's really important. Second is, for the fans of the Hunger Games, they can read more information coming from the author, Susan Collins. So that's one example. Another example is with the release of The Rise of Skywalker, a really popular film. We created a WebAR-based experience where you're in this 360 environment, and it's highly interactive to see clips from the film, learn fan trivia, and engage in a more immersive way in the home during this time of the pandemic where everybody's sheltering in place.
Got you. So for everybody who's listening in, you can over to geenee.me/project/hunger-games, and you will see an example of what Cory was just describing there and seeing it coming alive. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about this particular project, for example, or any other projects that you're working on? Sort of what are the underlying reasons that this is being used? Is this like a conversion driver? Is this, an awareness driver? How do you see this typically being used?
It depends on the KPIs of the client. Some do just want to engage with their consumers in an entertaining way. Most are going one layer deeper where they want to convert. So in the example of, I mentioned Warner Brothers, for the film It Too, which came out late last year, we had this experience where red balloons start appearing around your body, and then a clown from the film kind of scares you. And at that exact moment, it takes a selfie shot of surprise. And you can then share that. So they wanted people to know about the film, and the impetus, the driver of that was for somebody to share that experience of the surprise and have other people engage in that experience. But most importantly on that was the ability through a Fandango integration to buy the ticket. And we actually drove, and I know Pathmonk would know the performance stats on conversion. 5% click the ticketing link, and 5% is really significant in the terms of performance marketing, where it's typically under 2% if you're just running performance marketing ads, banner ads, and so forth.
Interesting. So it can be used in various different ways depending on the KPIs that the business is. And I can attest to that. A lot of conversion rates that we're seeing would start even below the 2%.
That's right.
Very good. Okay, cool. So maybe tell us a little bit about, you mentioned a couple of enterprise clients that you're working with. Is that sort of the standard case who would be leveraging the technology, or what would be, a typical client looking like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the way to articulate it is we are a B2B2C company. So we make these powerful tools which include industry-leading image recognition. And so if you think about the camera, what does the camera see? What can it identify? And Geenee holds a number of patents in image recognition dating back from its founding 6 years ago to later on WebAR in browser patents. And so we can recognize any image, including in video. This is really important. So even if you're playing any video that's on YouTube, you can point the camera and scan that video and unlock some experience. And that can be related to a film, it can be related to news. It's really unconstrained on what's in that video. So when you think about image recognition, frames per second, like high definition, 60 frames per second, it's just stitched together images. And so we can recognize inside of a video and unlock an AR experience. And it's unconstrained what that can be. So that's really the underlying technology that Geenee's built upon to drive business results. That's really important.
Very interesting. I will sort of circle back one more time sort of about the clients that are using the technology, and especially how they're discovering Geenee, because it's a very highly visual product that you're having there, which a lot of people experience. What would be a typical journey for somebody being sort of introduced to the concept, introduced to the company, and then sort of eventually start using it? Like, what would be a typical user journey looking like?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. We have a kind of a thought leadership content marketing strategy, and if you think of some of the best companies like HubSpot, which really built their business on content marketing and in their blog. Mm-hmm. And so our blog is on Medium, and we're on a 2-week cadence of releasing thought leadership that has to do with today. So how can AR be used in a time where people are in the home? Mm-hmm. What are privacy advantages to AR? How can different verticals like CPG interact with WebAR? That could be, I've mentioned some like a can, where Red Bull is a big client of ours globally, and it could be movie tickets, it could be books, and so forth. So we believe this is the future, and Tim Cook has validated it. He calls AR the biggest platform since the smartphone. And that's, if you think back to the early days, the first movers that built their brands on social media are dominant forces today. So in answer to your question specifically, we do a lot of content marketing, and then we syndicate that on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Because we're B2B, it makes more sense to be there than some of the, than Snapchat, which is where I came from as an example, prior. And that's where we're generating interest. And then people do come to our website. There is a contact form, and then we engage in a conversation. There's a lot more we could do using powerful tools like Pathmonk, because one of the things, again, that I'm so intrigued by your service is the lead scoring and qualification. And that's really important, because you get a lot of looky-loos that might come to your website, and those aren't the those big halo clients. And so being able to engage with them, having some kind of web assistant, which I believe Pathmonk also offers, is something that we're going to get to. And maybe we might talk after this podcast, but that is the level that you need to do in a SaaS platform.
Makes a lot of sense. Very, very interesting. I would have actually maybe asked that last question on the sort of on to finish up that topic. The website in itself, you mentioned you have the contact form there. What role does it play? Because it obviously visually shows quite some very interesting and intriguing case studies. Probably, so if if I reflect on many interviews that we had in terms of case studies, probably one of the most engaging ones because you can show what you do. But what role does the website play for you in that overall sort of system of winning those clients?
Yeah, it's really a top of funnel. Obviously, as most websites are, it's a point of engagement, and what we're going to be adding even more functionality to the website, including some of the triggers so that people can experience it directly. And I know every startup says our new website's coming next week or something like that, but a website is something that needs to be continuously updated. It can't just be built once and then you forget it. It needs to add these superpowers, some maybe that are being supplied by Pathmonk, but also in our case, adding the interactivity. And we have the capability today to actually blow a hole in a website. I know that sounds strange, but you point your phone at a website, recognize a image, and it opens into a portal, and that portal is on your phone. And now you can step into that portal and you can actually look back, and it's as if you're in another world. Mm-hmm. and you can see outside the door of how you came in. We haven't seen anybody do that, and anybody who'd like a demo of that, we'd be happy to show that. That we'll be releasing that on our website coming soon. So it's about the immersiveness of how we think of a website. Website is a 2D surface, and we are taking it into the spatial web.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. So everybody who's now listening in the podcast and is getting more and more intrigued about sort of that visual experience, I can just say one more time to head over to Geenee, GEENEE, and to head over .me actually to head over to the page and experience what Cory was just describing there. Okay, great. So maybe just one last question about the website, because we've now maybe talked about this a little bit. Do you see yourself, I'm just curious, Dusty, do you yourself sort of using your own case studies? Is that like a conversion driver for your own business? And are you using that sort of intentionally in a way to, raise conversions on the page?
I think that customer testimonials are one of the most powerful tools in sales enablement, because you can beat your chest all you want and say you're the best, or you're the leader, or you have the best image recognition, but the proof is really in the product itself. And not only the product, but who's using it. And that comes down to the end user experience. So what a case study can do is show in a visual way what's been done, and then put some metrics behind that. I shared some, like 5% to the ticket link. When you have the metrics behind the performance and you have a visual representation, and the next level where we're going is to add that interactivity so people can experience some of these themselves, instead of just discovering it randomly and on some of the sites like Twitter or LinkedIn or Medium. So I do think it's really powerful. I think case studies, anybody who's in business, particularly for SaaS, you need to do more than just put a logo on the page. You need to actually show what was been done and how did you drive business results. And that's what we're aiming to do with our website.
Very good. So let's switch gears a little bit and learn about you personally as a leader in the company. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about what is the content, or where do you learn and improve yourself, right? And skill up yourself every day. What is sort of the places that, where you go, where you learn?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that being in any position, continuous learning is something that's really important. And I've gone, the highest education I achieved was a master's, and then I did an innovation and entrepreneurship program online, actually, before this happened with Stanford on a Coursera, I should say. And I took 11 courses, and they were really illuminating on social media marketing strategy, design thinking, so forth. So that's one real case that I did, though I'm in my 40s and I wanted to continuously learn. The second is there's actually some VR training programs, which I would highly recommend, by by companies like Tailspin, which is a California-based VR learning company. There's another company called Striver, and they teach soft skills like how to give performance feedback or how to learn inclusive leadership. And you're actually engaging in immersive training, and you feel like I'm speaking to you just like right now. You can look into a person's eyes and get feedback. It's the closest thing that you can have to role playing. So that's another way. And then I highly recommend not only your podcast, Lucas, on PathMonk, but also SaaStr have amazing library of content that have been extremely useful to my day-to-day job to upskill because they interview so many CROs, particularly chief revenue officers, about what they're doing to move their business forward. And so I really think those three type of education, but whether it's LinkedIn Learning or a YouTube video, just as long as you're continuously looking outside to learn best practices, it's a really good lifelong learning is something that everyone should invest in.
Very good, and thanks for sharing that note. As we're slowly wrapping up the interview, I would have a couple of rapid fire questions. They are a surprise to our guests, so everybody who's listening,
let's do it.
Nobody's prepared for them, but everybody survived so far.
Yep.
Okay. Usually it's a one sentence or one word answer.
Okay.
What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Driving business results for end users and clients.
Mm-hmm. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you want to have fixed for your company today?
So without giving too much a secret roadmap, what I would say is that there's an amazing opportunity, and even if our competitors are listening, I welcome anyone to join this race, which is to enable the ability to not only create web AR experiences that are shared and passively consumed, but then to be able to open up the camera on a singular device like you do FaceTime, recreate that with augmented experiences, and then share that, because I believe in the power of co-creation, and that can drive business results for clients.
Very interesting avenue. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Well, I think as a CEO, everything. Competition keeps you awake. The state of change in the technology, which is constantly moving. We are in an uncertain period that's unprecedented this century, where there's a lot of change and collective grief. And not only that, but people are isolated physically. And that is different than anything in modern history that we've confronted, where things like being together and shaking hands, and we're even with clients and with colleagues. Mm-hmm. So those are some really big factors. And just to sum it up, it's competition, the pace of change in technology, and are you keeping ahead and have a market gap, and then third, just the external environment.
Very interesting. And very last question: if today would be your first day working on Geenee, what would be one advice that you would give yourself?
Yeah, this is I gotta admit, this is the toughest question out of all, and I think you have to think very kind of inwardly and assess yourself and assess the organization. I think that number one, you need to get absolute alignment internally before you can make impacts externally. And so the more that leaders make sure to instill a few values. One is team accountability. Two is a performance-driven culture. Three is clearly aligning to goals. Some companies use OKRs, organizational key results. I think that's really, really important. Four is a clear vision of where is the company going. And five is the understanding cross-functionally that we're going to have to execute in parallel so many different things, like the website, like the core technology, like the client work, and as every startup I've ever seen, the core development of a platform, and all of those different elements usually pull you in different directions, and there's tension and frictions. And so it's really important if you're starting with a clean slate to identify the goals, the vision, the team alignment, what it's going to take to get there, and all the opportunities that exist for everyone as stakeholders in the business to win.
That's a very elaborate, but also a very in-depth answer. So really appreciate that you share sort of that learning that you, I mean, basically learned on your own experience
Yeah,
building up the company. So Cory, I really appreciate you taking the time to being part of Pathmonk Presents and sharing us your experiences with Geenee and also how you educate yourself and learn. So thanks for being part of the show.
thank you, Lucas. It was a pleasure.